Well, thank you for showing up, and we wanted to just give some information about what happened last night, where we talked about flood preparation in 1997. And that was, some of you will remember that. We thought we had it on well taken care of. We put sand out in the neighborhoods so that the people could use it. And we prepared for all the storms and things that come along and froze that sand, and so it couldn't be used at all. We had to bring it all back. So at the last minute, we needed people to be sandbaggers. And we had sandbaggers galore. We had to get kids out of the high schools. We had to get kids out of NDSU. We had to get kids out of everywhere. And after that, we had to get all the parents helping. And so we needed even more people than that. And we had about 25,000 people have come up at that time to work on that flood protection. And so what the Fargo Lions Club has done here is come up with a model that you can see here, a gift to the city of what people did back there in 1997. We would have lost that fight without the sandbaggers. So they're going to talk a little bit about the sandbaggers here, and I think, Jane, you next.
So my role today is to kind of guide any questions to the person best able to respond to those. So before I turn it over, I'm going to introduce all the different people we have up front today. Excuse me, on my far right is Brock Davis. Brock is a metal artist and fabricator who does amazing work, whether it's small items or large items, and this is probably going to be the largest item that Brock will have built to date. And as you can see, he's got the bridge structure to build as well as the figures on top of that. And of course, the figures, the sandbaggers, are our main emphasis. Those come from Karen Bakke, excuse me. Karen is our artist in terms of creating the figures. The figure that's standing in front of the table is an idea of how much detail we'll strive to put into those figures, because they'll be that tall as compared to a few inches tall in the final piece. The final piece will stand altogether 17.5 feet high and roughly 28 feet wide. Next, of course, you already heard from Mayor Furness. Mayor Furness, a member of the Fargo Lions Club for many, many years, led the flood fight in 1997. An amazing flood fight that our city won, really because of leadership like Bruce Furness, as well as citizens like we have in our wonderful community. Next up, I'm going to direct all your attention all the way over to Mike Benson. Mike Benson is a member of the Lions Club and lived near the river in 1997 and later. And his neighborhood was sandbagged with these volunteers who just kind of come out of nowhere and just save the neighborhood. And it was Mike's vision that put this whole idea together, and let's somehow remember and commemorate the sandbaggers and the spirit of sandbagging, where we just take care of each other. And last, I'm going to introduce to you, because then he's going to come up and say a few words, our current mayor, Tim Mahoney. As you all know, Mayor Mahoney was very involved in more recent flood fights, and again, that leadership is tremendously important in corralling the volunteer spirit of many, many community members. So, Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you. So when the Lions Club came to us and told us about this project, I thought it was fantastic. Between Mayor Furness and myself, Denny Wallaker was the mayor as well. And in 2009, we had 100,000 volunteers. And we got to one point in which the river was rising. We had 10 days to make almost 7 million sandbags. And we thought we could not make the sandbags fast enough. We got to a point we would make 500,000 sandbags a day. And Denny and I went walking down the Fargo Dome one day, and just watching all the human activity, it was like an anthill in which you had all these people doing different things. And even if people couldn't do the sandbags, they were up in the chairs getting the bags ready, or they're doing something else. Everybody was contributing it. And to that great spirit, we wanted to say, what could we do to thank the community for all that hard work and effort? And whenever we've reached out to people, come and do sandbags. Now, I hate to tell you, Mayor Furness, but when I tried sandbagging recently, some of the schools say, how do you make a sandbag wall and how do you do all this? And we forgot that some of that intrinsic knowledge that almost every school child has been lost because we haven't been doing sandbagging as frequently as we used to. So we had to make a YouTube to show how to make a sandbag wall so people would understand how to do that. In the midst of all that, when Jane and I talked about this, and with Brock, our artist, is who do you want on that line? And Superintendent Burness, who was superintendent of the public schools at the time, remembered when he went out to a area in which a dike was being made, and he was into psychology, and he said it was the most amazing thing you would see is that people just knew where to go. They just knew how to make a line for sandbags. They knew how to set up the line. Our firemen knew how to go where their place was. The sandbaggers knew what they had to do. And it was just that what we're trying to capture that same spirit of people coming to an area and starting sandbagging and moving the sandbags from left to right in which you go to the wall. And it's very important that the public understands that it's a community effort and it's people all involved with it. So this is the Fargo Lions Club 100th anniversary. We feel this is a very fitting event and a very fitting spirit of the Sandbagger as a memorial to that as well. And we feel this will be one of those places in the city of Fargo, if you come by, you will walk down to the river and you will see this beautiful sculpture and see what it captures. And it's supposed to capture the imagination of the people. And as any mayor would say to you, if it wasn't for the people, we would never have been able to protect ourselves from the floods. And all of us, when we sit in any leadership position, we thank God for the people that showed up when we asked them to, came out in numbers, came out in the middle of the night, came out and did the work that needed to be done. So I'm very impressed with what we finally came up with as a memorial. I think that the group did a great job of working on it, the artistics, and how we wanted to do it. And I think you will be amazed when it is finally up that it'll be truly one of those places in Fargo you got to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. So at this time, rather than try to direct the conversation, I thought, well, what questions might there be? And of the reporters and others who are here, do you have some questions you would like to ask of any of the particular folks who are up front here?
Yeah, Tanner Robinson with WDAY. Just wondering, when's kind of the projected timeline that this project is going to go up?
We had hoped to put it up sooner than later, but I think we're going to be looking at early to mid-summer this year, but it will definitely be in 2021. The fabrication, of course, needs to be done, and we'll need to get it mounted onto the pillars, which is going to be trickier than I imagined in working with the various engineers and architects that are involved in the project. But midsummer, I would say, late June, early July. Great question.
Hi, I'm Max. I'm from KVRR. Maybe the designer, I could ask a question of how she came about this.
You bet, Karen.
Hi. Of course, the design concept came from Mike. He says, I want all these people, I want to show who was out here. And so I started inviting people into my studio to do photography, so I could shoot them in different, they'd pick up sandbags and throw them and carry them, etc. So I had hundreds and hundreds of photos to work with, and a lot of them went on the cutting floor. But most everyone that's in this line, they were actually at some point in one of the floods actually helping. So these are the real people that were doing the work. Some of them will be able to recognize themselves. Others, they just it's to portray a body of people, different sizes, different shapes, different ages. Everything is different because the whole community came together to do this. And that's kind of where I was going with that. Any other question?
How long did it take you to come up with the idea?
From start, and I'm not done yet, because there's still more tweaking and more illustration to do. I'll have at least 200 hours into it, because just finding, after pass the bags how many times. I'm looking for a hole here or composition. And because we've got it layered, you know, front, back, I want to make sure that when we get the lighting in there, that I'm not getting a shadow someplace where it shouldn't be. And I don't want to cover up a hole where I want light to come through. I'm hoping to situate the bags, which should be open more to give it more light and kind of get a flow of the bag all the way through to the end. And at the end here by the firemen, that's kind of the pile, that's the wall. And so that has a different feel, but I kind of want that flow to go through, so I'm passing the bag through the different people. Sure. Anything else?
Jane, did you want to talk about the fundraiser?
Sure.
That people can contribute?
Mayor Mahoney asked if I wanted to mention the fundraising. So the funds to pay for all of Karen's amazing hours and Brock's work that has begun, because he's created this and he's got some of the large structural pieces already, is all being raised through the Fargo Lions Club. We have partnered with the Fargo-Moorhead Area Foundation, so if anyone wanted to donate to this, which we want the community to have the opportunity to do, since this represents the community and how we come together, we thought it was important to also enable community members to step forward again and say, I want to be part of making this monument happen. So we set up that portal with the FM Area Foundation where the average person, perhaps represented by the line, can go in and make a donation of $10 or $100 or $5,000 or whatever amount might be in their ability to do. Every amount that someone gives is wonderful because it adds another person to the line that is making this monument happen. So on the FM Area Foundation website, there's a Spirit of the Sandbaggers link that people can donate to. We've raised roughly half the money that we would like to raise altogether to get it built, installed, lit up at night. And so there's more room to go for more people to participate. Any questions on the fundraising from our news media? The big audacious goal that we just recently confirmed, so thank you for asking, is $215,000 by the time we pay the artists, installation, and lighting. And some added security on that space is in there too. Great question. Yesterday, no. In all seriousness, it can come in at any time. We're going to leave the portal open either until we get to that 215 mark or until probably June or July 1st. That actual hardcore stop date has not been confirmed yet because we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. We have no idea if lots of community members will step up just like they did to Sandbag, or if that will be more of a trickle. A lot of the donations we've had thus far have been what you would call lead gifts, and they're from organizations that were tremendously involved in flood fighting efforts through the city in years past. Places like Master Construction, places like Northern Improvement, and the others aren't coming to my mind right offhand, but they're listed on our website. They're up to date as of this morning. And other organizations in town, like Gate City Bank, Sanford Health, that all appreciated the Sandbaggers' work over the years, are also fantastic donations that have come in. One other thing I would, go ahead.
Actually, I have a question for Brock. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the fabrication process and what kind of goes into that.
Well, we'll definitely start with the bridge. That will be fabricated out of 2x6 by 1/4-inch rectangular aluminum tubing, and there'll be a ladder structure or frame inside encased 1/4-inch aluminum, and then we'll have two separate mounting plates that will actually attach to the structural pillars on the inside of the decorative pillars. And then we will set the bridge with the people all on top of the 2 mounting plates and secure it.
And then with a piece this large, how much time or how much of your time does it take to do all that fabrication?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. No, I'm projecting probably 3 to 4 months or weeks to get it fully to paint and everything.
One thing I will mention is that what you're seeing here is the raw aluminum, so to speak. Once it's completed, once Brock's fabrication work is done, it will be powder coated with colors to coordinate with the sandstone color of the current pillars. And so there'll be a darker color and perhaps a lighter color. We're still kind of finalizing the color selections. In fact, we're having a meeting on that we're hopefully going to reach a decision on tomorrow. But the paint is intended to give it longer-term durability than the material alone might provide. We don't want this to need maintenance. We want it to be self-maintaining with the snow and ice and anything else that affects it just sloughing off. And that's one of the reasons for one of the darker colors being selected is things will melt away much more easily. I did want to have an opportunity to have you hear from Mike Benson. Mike is our original visionary. He's kind of the visionary of the Fargo Lions Club. He has ideas and they sort of percolate, and then he comes forward and says, hey, how about if we do this? The Lions Conservancy Park that exists south of town was Mike and his wife Jan's idea, and this is Mike's idea come forward. I can't even imagine what it feels like to be Mike and see this progressing so wonderfully. Mike, would you like to share a little bit about that?
Thank you, Jane. I guess the thing is, this past Sunday, 24 years ago, was when the crest was in the 97 flood. And we bought a home in South Acres, which we didn't even think was in the flood zone. And, you know, when the flooding came along, you looked at that, every morning you'd get up and the river was closer and closer and closer to your house. Then one day they end up, City of Fargo engineers, her name I think was April Walker, came along and she had stakes. And on the stakes they had a line drawn. That was where the projected crest was going to be. That was above the windows in the back of our house. And so pretty much we knew that we had to build a dike. A lot of people, you don't really have experience for this. The City of Fargo, the engineers that they had were very helpful in what needed to be done. And, you know, so we'd pretty much follow what they were doing or what they suggested. But the thing was that the people, it takes a lot of people and a lot of time and a lot of energy to build a dike. So if a dike's this high, there might be, you know, 80 bags per foot or something like that of dike. It's a huge number of bags in something like this. And so I guess the main thing was that I called all my friends, I did all the work, our family members, but that wasn't enough. And the thing is, when we needed the help, there would be people out on the street that'd come walking by and people would say, hey, we need help here. And this is 25 people. 25 people was about the distance from where our pile of sand was to where the dike was. So that would be close to what we physically looked at. You could see that pile that would have played out over a week many, many times. And I guess the thing is that down our street, this was South Acres, there was maybe over 15 homes that flooded out. All those people worked as hard as we did. And a lot of them, just the water came up higher than you could build for, and those homes were lost. In the middle of the night, when people come walking out of their home after they having lost it, is something that you would remember for a long time. So what this is, the people that helped us helped people up and down the Red River in protecting their home. And this is something that I am just super excited about how this has turned out and how everything has worked up to this point. Thank you.
So that amazing 1997 flood, your comment that we thought it was out of the floodplain, yeah, we all did. It hadn't flooded to that depth in the previous 100 years. So none of us could have imagined how high the waters would come, as Mayor Finesse alluded to, in 1997, and that was like 39.54 feet, if I remember correctly. So we kind of figured, well, we're good for the next 100 years as long as we can protect to 39, but as Mayor Mahoney will testify, it was 40.84 feet in 2008, I want to say, right? 2009. Can't keep those 2 years straight in my head. Anyway, so in 2009, we were again at a record crest. And the sandbaggers that are out there stacking those bags were the absolute difference. I was standing in my neighbor's yard in 2008 or 9, and the sandbag wall was higher than me, and I'm pretty tall. And so I stood on a stack of pallets to see over the sandbag dike. And as tall as it is, it has to be roughly twice as wide or more in order to be stable and hold back that water. My neighbor's yard had a long meadow before the actual river exists, but that was right up against those sandbags. It was at just the top edge of the sandbags. It was very amazing, and I could not see the other end of the water. It was like looking across a lake, and the water was moving at an amazing rate, and the strength of those sandbag walls is mind-boggling. I do believe that year, part of what helped us was the weather. It got very cold, and I think that helped freeze those sandbags in place. So I've always kind of written that off to a higher power, standing there in the sandbag line with the rest of us. And you got to think, all those people coming together, there is a power there. There is a spirit there that makes a tremendous difference in the sense of security that each of us who lived along the river felt, but also everybody who works in Fargo-Moorhead. If we had lost that fight in either of those years or any of the years in between, we wouldn't have this beautiful city hall. We wouldn't have the community we have today. So the spirit of the sandbagger absolutely represents what we are in the Fargo-Moorhead community and really in this whole region. As we know from flooding throughout the state of North Dakota as well as northern Minnesota, people help each other out. It's what we do, and that's what this monument is all about. Either mayor, would you like to say a few words before we go ahead and close things off? All right. So thank you very much to the media. Before I say good day, is there any final questions you would like to toss at me? All right. Thank you very much for your support. We hope that you can help us get the word out so that everybody can again participate in the Sandbagger. Thank you.